Welcome to Frontline Conversations. The Cockroach Janta Party started as a joke, and in no time it went on to helm a Gen Z protest that took the power center by storm. They achieved the unthinkable when Dharmendra Pradhan resigned as Union Education Minister. He is the first minister to have resigned from the Modi government, in under public pressure. We have with us Saurav Das, who's chief spokesperson of the CJP. He will be talking to us about the protests, the impact that the protests have had on the political establishment, and the road ahead for the CJP. Thank you so much, Saurav, for joining us. So it's been quite a phenomenal sort of a journey for the CJP. It started as a meme just 2 months ago, and you've made so much of an impact in such a short period of time. So how do you look at this?
I think it really shows the power of the young generation of this country because it started off as a joke, like you said, and now it has brought an arrogant government to its knees. I think it just shows the versatility of this younger generation. We are often criticized that these people are not serious. It's very casual generation, etc. But then this entire protest, starting off as a joke and getting to as something as serious as a resignation of a minister under this kind of government, it shows our resilience also. And it is what has happened is historic because in the past 12 years, nothing of this sort has happened. There was a fear and there was an atmosphere of fear that was created. There was an aura of fear around Modi also. All of this is gone now. So kudos to the younger generation.
It all started with a tweet which Abhijit Dipke had put out. He was in the US at that time. He was studying and he gave it all up and he landed in Delhi to turn this sort of an online movement into an on the ground protest. He came here on the 6th of June and we saw the Dharna on June 6th and the developments thereafter. So, how do you look at this leap of faith, so to speak, with Abhijit Dipke took? And his role in the events that have unfolded thereafter.
See, it's almost as though the universe opened a door for India through its young, because it started off as a joke. And when this tweet had gone viral, he had put out this membership form that people could join the Cockroach Janta Party. And then he put out a manifesto. He shared that link with me to amplify. I amplified it on Twitter. More than 8 lakh people joined within no time. And once that all that happened, there were calls from all sides that we should be doing something about this. We should be using this kind of following and influence online to convert it into on ground action. And I'm very glad that Abhijit took that leap of faith and stopped whatever he was doing in the US and came back to India. Despite death threats, despite so much abuse online, threats online, he did take that leap of faith and come back to India, and rest is history.
Tell us a little bit about how this core team of CJP came together. Abhijit, of course, then you and the other spokespersons and the team of volunteers. How did this come together? And whether you were seeking, inputs from other, eminent individuals also on how to go about it, how to take it forward.
I So Abhijit started with this tweet, and then he reached out to me to amplify the membership form, which I did. And once it grew so big, he reached out to Ashutosh and me. Ashutosh he knew from before because both of them had worked in the ARP for some time together. Ashutosh was active with ARP about 2-3 years ago. Abhijit was active with ARP 2 years ago until he went to the US to study. So they knew each other, and that's how he reached out to Ashutosh. He reached out to me saying, for the role of chief spokesperson. I was a bit hesitant because I had my career going in journalism. I was also pursuing a couple of stories at that point. So I was a bit skeptical on joining. However, I did ultimately. And Ratna, I knew. So, and of course, Abhijit was also aware of Ratna's work online. So he reached out to Ratna through me himself. Afreen, we identified during our Bangalore protest. So she was a much later induction. Vaishnavi, Abhijit already knew, and she was there from day one, creating the website and all of that. Deepak Balyan was Ashutosh's friend, a farmer activist. Ashutosh brought him in. And who else? I think Vijeta, our ex spokesperson. Vijeta was Dhruv Rathi's recommendation. So me, Ashutosh, and Vijeta were first announced when Abhijit was still in the US. And after that, we had the other people coming publicly.
Questions have, incessantly been asked about the funding of CJP. Where are you getting the resources from? So, how would you answer that question?
See, our funding is the people's goodwill. Uh, During the protest, before the protest, we didn't need any money at all. But during the protest, we had this donation box there where people were generously contributing. A lot of the times, we didn't even need any funds because people were, themselves ordering food for everyone. There were people who came and, gave us envelope uh, on the stage saying that do good work and giving their blessings and everything. So it was really people's goodwill that funded us, which made this entire protest possible.
On the 20th of July, the surge of youngsters that we saw coming into the national capital, what does it tell us about the state of the mind of the youngsters, their fears and their aspirations?
I think there was anyway mass discontent against this government. It found a channel through the CJP. The NEET paper leak was the immediate trigger. However, there were several issues that people were unhappy about, and all of that came to the fore during these protests because by the end of it, the sentiment on the ground was more than Dharmendra Pradhan. It was about joblessness, it was about various other paper leaks, it was about the growing inflation, mehengai, and just the atmosphere of fear that people were against. There was a lot of profanity that was used also by the younger generation, all in good
And there has
spirit
been a
though.
lot of criticism about
The
the kind
profanity.
of plan. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, see, profanity or not, use of criminal machinery is not justified in that case. However, there was, my point being that a lot of issues that amalgamated, which during the protest, and all of that was seen during our talks with the ministers also. We told them that the situation on the ground is changing from Pradhan to Pradhan Mantri. So they must understand and handle the situation because our demands are very clear. The Pradhan has to go, that compensation needs to come to the families of the dead NEET victims, and immunity needs to be provided to all the protesters. However, if the sentiment is changing on the ground rapidly, it is for the government to think and think how long they want to allow this to continue.
Uh, was the turnout on the 20th of July beyond your expectations? Were you surprised by the number of people who came in
Till
response to
till
your call?
25th July, I mean, it was quite expected because there's a lot of support for the CJP on the ground. People from all over the country had visited Mantar until then during our sit-in protest. By the 19th of July, before the Chalo Sansad March, more than 3 lakh people had visited Jantar Mantar in all that while. And that was a month-long sit-in, right? So people who used to come used to tell us that, in the villages also, there's a lot of talk about CJP. People knew of its existence. They might not have too much clarity on what we stand for or what is it that we are doing. But there's definitely a lot of support for the CJP and for the young people of this country to do something. So we were, quite sure that we will see this kind of response in the future. And that is what happened. Lakhs of them came down on the streets in Delhi and elsewhere, the protests that were happening in other states, they were also very, very huge in numbers.
Were you taken aback by the kind of police action that was taken against the protesters on the 20th of
Absolutely,
July?
because that kind of brutality was unseen in a long, long time in the national capital. And these are people who are not terrorists. They are the young of this country. They are their own children. They are the future of this nation. And for them to be treated in this manner, uh, you know, uh, aim being taken at their head instead of the legs, which is allowed as per SOP. Their heads were broken, uh, arms were broken, legs were broken, pellet guns were used. All of this was happening in the national capital, in between so much media presence. So yeah, it was absolutely terrible what happened with the young of this country, and I think that work to create a greater solidarity for the cause of the youth, right? For what they were standing for. Then you saw the kind of outpour of support for the young generation. It actually fired back on the regime, and they too realized that they did something terribly wrong, and people wouldn't forgive them for the crime that they committed. And we are also very clear in our resolve that each and every police personnel, each and every RF personnel who committed this kind of monstrous, crackdown, they ought to be prosecuted. They will have to go jail when the time comes, and will ensure that each one of them go to jail for this.
And does CJP have a plan on how to ensure that accountability is fixed for the alleged police brutality on
Yes.
the 20th of July?
So we have announced a platform called Sakshi, SAAKSHI. It's on our cockroachjantaparty.org page. On this, we have created a medium through which people can upload pictures and videos of police brutality, and a team of lawyers that we have. They will be going through, sifting through all that content and identifying police officers, and will file complaints and FIRs against them, and if need be, go to the court also to get those FIRs registered, and ultimately help those people secure justice in the long term. So that is one way of doing it. As you know, Kapil Sibal also has made a generous contribution to the CJP with a 1 crore grant, which we'll be using strictly for legal aid purposes. We'll be creating a website very shortly, we'll be launching it, where people from all over India, every district, will be able to, all the lawyers from in every district can volunteer to become part of that network, and they'll be helping protesters everywhere in India, whoever needs legal help. So this way, we want to formalize or structure this organization so that nobody goes without legal help.
Leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi has taken up the issue of the police brutality in a very
Yes.
strong manner, and he has demanded the resignation of Union Home Minister Amit Shah over this. Does the CJP concur with this demand?
See, it is the political opposition also has certain stands to take. It has a role to also play. Of course, these were spontaneous, organic protests that we were leading on the ground, and our demands were quite clear. Uh, and our demands are being met. The main demand has been met, Pradhan's resignation. The FIRs are being slowly withdrawn from several states. Guarantees are coming to that effect. I would just tell the government, and the compensation is also being worked on. I would just tell the government through you not to, cheat the young generation of this country, because this generation already has trust issues, major trust issues. And if the government cheats them, then next time they are on the roads, it's going to get very difficult for this government. So they should honor the guarantees that they have given. So that is a stand we have taken. Now it is for the opposition to take this forward in the manner they deem fit. If they're asking for answers from the home minister, I'm always up for accountability, always in favor of answerability. So Amit Shah should come out in parliament and answer those questions if he's not in the wrong, but that he is hiding, that he is not answering those questions in parliament, it shows that there's some culpability that lies there also, because ultimately that kind of brutality, that kind of crackdown by the police couldn't have happened without the concurrence of the home minister. So he should face questions, he should face the opposition eye to eye and answer before this nation and this young generation what he did and how he did it.
Are you satisfied with the process being followed with regard to withdrawal of FIRs against the protesters? And also, the government has said that action will be taken against those who have criminal antecedents. Uh, how do you?
See, as far as we are concerned, our demands were very clear. Protesters should have immunity, and they cannot be qualified. Because as soon as you give them that space to decide who is violent, who is not violent, who is peaceful, who is not peaceful, then it gives a lot of powers to the police to misuse those, qualifications. So, unqualified protection to all protesters. If there were criminal elements that had come into the protest, we are very clear that criminals were or antisocial elements infiltrated our protests at the behest of BJP RSS, and those were the people who came. Now, if such people had come, the police must answer why they were out in public and roaming around so free. And number two, that if the police identifies them to be doing something very violent, then they should be going back to the courts in their cases and seeking cancellation of bail. However, you do not file an FIR for our protest and try to malign our protest using them, right? And then what the police will ultimately do is use those cases to rope in all the peaceful protesters also. So we don't want that kind of situation. The police would rather, should rather go and get those bails cancelled of those hardened criminals if there were any.
And the process being followed for withdrawal of FIRs, are you satisfied with the pace at which the FIRs are being withdrawn?
See, the pace is slow. We would only urge the government to expedite the process, give us a time period within which all of this will be done, and use the proper language. Because now they are using the Supreme Court's order to say that FIRs can be proceeded against, investigated, however, no coercive action would be taken. However, the Supreme Court must also realize that they cannot interfere between a solemn agreement reached between the government of India and the protesters. Because if that is the case, then the Supreme Court should have faced the protests if Supreme Court is going to be the final authority on this. Does the assurance on behalf of the government of India mean nothing? If that is the case, make that clear. And the protests should then be faced by the Supreme Court, by the Chief Justice of India, who is leading this bench. And negotiations should also be happening with the Chief Justice of India on the other side of the table. This is not how things work. The Supreme Court should understand the sentiments attached to this, and the government also should not mislead the Supreme Court by not putting out these facts before them.
After July 20th till around July 25th, we saw large number of youngsters who kept pouring into the national capital. So, were you at all apprehensive at any point in time that the CJP may not be able to kind of manage these huge numbers and things could get out of control
On the 25th
from July 20th to
to
25th?
no, we were fairly confident that the protesters who are gathering are educated people, they are rational. Of course, all of them were very sad and very in anger at the kind of police brutality that took place. There were some within the police force who had shown some remorse at what had happened, not the main guys, but the lower level officers. So, their anger is understandable. But we were very confident that these are people who are acting in good faith, and they will, protest within the four corners of the constitution.
The government called you for talks on July 20th, the very day that you were supposed to take out the march. So, were you surprised by the timing of the outreach? And had the government reached out to you before July 20th?
Before
at
July
all?
20th, the government did not reach out. From day one, June 20th, we kept telling the police that we want to speak to the government. But the government wasn't
There
forthcoming.
was no overture from the government.
Nothing at all. But on the 20th, the kind of crowds that they saw, I think the government got jittery, and because of which they wanted to speak with us. Now, we were very clear that from day one that when the government calls us, we'll be talking to them. We had promised that, so we would honor our promise. So on the 20th, when the police came to us and started offering whatever positions to be spoken with, we said we are open to talks. However, it has to be with a senior cabinet minister or the prime minister. Then we got Nadda's call in the around the noon, and we went and spoke with him. He kept us waiting for 4 hours, right, before any talks could take place. And in those 4 hours, our phones were taken away initially. After we threatened to, give a dharna right there, that is when they allowed us to take our phones and communicate with the outside world. A lot of brutality was taking place during those 4 hours. They sort of put us under, illegal arrest, house arrest, illegal detention at Nadda's place. So, 20th, the talks happened, and after that, when people again gathered, we were very clear that we would meet at a neutral place. We would not go back to the minister's house or his office. It has to be at a neutral place, and that is what happened.
So while you were there at JP Nadda's place, there was this criticism that the crowds, the youngsters were completely on their own, that they did not have enough, guidance or direction as to what they were supposed to do or where they were supposed to go. How do you respond to that criticism?
I think that's not entirely true because Dipke was on the stage. There were a lot of MPs who had come who were also on the stage. So the march took place with them being on the truck so that everybody could see. And it was, the procession was taking place peacefully. There were, of course, Jantar Mantar was barricaded on all four sides by the police. So there were big groups of people outside of Jantar Mantar also who were peacefully protesting. So to a third person, that might look like, an abandoned group of protesters. But that was not really the case. All of them had were wanting to come to Jantar Mantar where we were, and because they were not being allowed, then they thought that they should go on the march also, because ultimately the destination was towards the Sansad. So that is what happened. I don't think anybody was left behind, and since day one we've been with the protesters. We have provided all help possible. We have any legal help, any medical help, all of that was provided. So I think in terms of leadership, there was nothing amiss.
During your talks with the government, did the government ever made this offer that Dharmendra Pradhan could be shifted to some other ministry?
Yes, I mean, not directly, but then they did tell us that which minister where is the prerogative of the prime minister, and that maybe in future a cabinet reshuffle could take place. Now we were very clear that if everything is the prerogative of the prime minister, then what is left to discuss, right? So that is not really a rational argument to have, and we told them that that Pradhan has to go. That's non-negotiable, and this is beyond any one of us, because what has resonated most on the ground is Pradhan's resignation. People are out for this particular demand, right? And if we go back to them without this, they are not going to accept it. So the government understood this, and the very next day they had to give up Pradhan. It was a major, major win for the young.
Sonam Wangchuk was a central figure of the protest, and he carried out this hunger strike for more than 25 days. But there has been criticism about the manner in which he broke his fast, that it was done in the presence of union ministers, and that none of the CJP members was there. And he has also been criticized for what has been seen as a climb down from your core demand of Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation. How do you respond to this view?
See, the man was fasting for 26 days. That's a lot, right? I mean, 26 days without food. I can't even imagine. So what was going on in his mind at that point, we don't know. We got the news through the media only on that night. I was at Jantar Mantar where there was, jammers were working. There was no signal and all of that. So we got the news through the media. There might have been reasons for him to do what he did. We were only happy that he broke his fast because we were very concerned about his health. We were, we were looking for a way for him to break his fast, and that it happened in that manner. I think the good thing is that he broke his fast. We were very scared if that something would happen to him if he had continued this.
Was the CJP in the loop with regard to the negotiations that were taking place between Sonam Wangchuk and the government before he broke his fast?
See, I personally didn't know because I was in Jantar Mantar and there was signal blackout. There was no cell tower. The internet wasn't working, so I didn't know what had happened. But what I've been told is that things transpired very quickly.
It was your fervent demand that Dharmendra Pradhan should resign, but ultimately, when it happened on July 25th, did it come as a surprise to you guys? And what were your first thoughts when you heard this news?
See, I think it was only a matter of time that he would go, but it happened on 25th, right before the third round of talks. I think it came as a pleasant surprise to all of us. And it was meant to be, but we didn't expect it at that moment. We thought the talks would conclude and then something would come out of it. But it happened before the talk, so that was surprising. And there was an atmosphere of celebration instantly once that news came. I still remember me and Ashu were on the outside on the Tolstoy Road and Sansad Mark place, right outside Janta Mantar. We were trying to control the crowd. We were trying to, appeal for peace and all of that. And then the police officer comes and said, "Ki ho gaya, ho gaya." मैं बोला क्या हो गया? तो बोलता resignation हो गया. So we are like then we rushed back to Jantar Mantar where there was already celebration happening of his resignation. So um, it was a beautiful moment because the young generation had won finally.
And we saw a lot of online resonance of the protests, and a lot of content was put out by the youngsters themselves, and the way they took over Insta, and
Yeah.
everybody was hooked to the reels and the content that they were putting on Insta. How do you look at this? And they used so much humor. It was serious at the same time. They brought in so much humor and non-serious elements into the protest. How do you look at that?
I think that kind of language the government was not ready to deal with. The language of the young, the language of the Gen Z. And that is what caught them off guard because they are so used to, protests having a certain kind of language, a very formal tone to them within certain limits of Maryada and all of that. But when the Gen Z came and stormed the streets, all kinds of content was being made, humor was being used, sarcasm was being used, and none of this the government was equipped with to deal with. And that is what worked like magic because this government has controlled the narrative so much, and they've had such a tight they've a tight pull when it comes to narrative setting. When this was happening on Instagram, they didn't know what to do at all, and then Mr. Modi was doing all of that 12:30 at
He
night
came on
videos,
Instagram
came on
himself, yes.
Instagram. He held a cabinet meeting, I'm told, where he asked all the ministers to start making reels and all of that. It doesn't work because this is the language of the young. You are not young anymore. And therefore, the uncles and aunties of the WhatsApp world were so offended by the kind of content that they saw online. They called it Ashleel, they called it Maryada mein nahi hai, and whatnot, all sanskari uncles and aunties. But that is how the generation is, and that is how it is going to be in the future. Uh, Look at what the cause that they are standing for, look at the values that they are standing for. Instead of focusing on their demands and those values, they would rather look at, how they are dressed or what they are speaking and the manner of their speaking, calling them a casual generation out there. I don't think all of that works. And hence, the protest was so powerful because that language resonated beyond even the younger generation. There were people from older generations who were coming in supporting, or who were supporting online. So it was, whatever happened was magic, and this government was not equipped to deal with this at all.
You refer to Prime Minister Modi's own outreach efforts using Insta. Uh, do you feel it's going to be effective in sort of um, assuaging the concerns of the youth, or would it inspire confidence in the young people?
See, now they are going after the young people who use profanity, right? People are going to notice that. The young generation is going to notice that. And profanity is used in everyday life, right? Everybody is using it, including the BJP MPs. And I'm sure the Prime Minister himself must be using some profane language. So when you go against these people, these young protesters, you're not really doing anything to build confidence. During our meeting with the ministers, we did tell them that there's a huge trust deficit that they need to work on. They need to extend an olive branch. They need to do something to inspire confidence. But when they use their police machinery to go after the young people who used some language that they might be offended with, and use the criminal law against them, it does not inspire confidence. I would just tell them, stop harassing the young of this country, stop harassing the youth, stop targeting them, uh, because if you continue doing this, then we'll have to protest again. Then we'll have to come out on the streets again. And this time, when we come out, it is going to get very difficult for the government.
How do you assess the measures that the government has announced to deal with the issues that were raised during the protests? Fast track courts, a stronger law, and a task force has been set up to reform the exam process. Are these measures satisfactory?
What about the 2024 task force that was set up under Radhakrishna? All those measures were not implemented till now. Yet another task force has been put in place. We don't know what is going to happen of it. So at this moment, I have no comments to make on that new task force. Nandan Nilekani, I don't know if he's even an educationist. He might be good in what he does in his technology space or whatever. But Aadhaar that he created, I mean, the government has rejected it today. What is the Aadhaar proof of? We don't know. We'll wait and see what the task force does. The government also has to engage with the CJP delegation in future, which they have already promised in a month's time. And a lot of focus is currently through these new measures on what happens post leak. But what we need now is to prevent leaks, because we don't want students to be going through all of that pressure all over again, all those anxieties, etc. So a systemic foundational reset from point zero, that is required. We need to rethink of this system, how we engage with protesters, how we engage with the system, how are people going to engage with the education system. Fast track courts, like I had said before, if you have a judge of questionable integrity, a corrupt judge at that seat, that system is not going to work. How are you going to resolve that? You have brought in Prahlad Joshi now. Prahlad Joshi was one of the ministers who was garlanding Bilkis Bano's rapists, right? So, what message are you sending to the youth? That does not inspire confidence. So, I think the government has completely lost the plot, and I think they're on their way out now, because Pradhan might have been our a rallying point for the protest, but there was mass discontentment against this entire establishment.
What is going to be the CJP's plan for the future? What are your plans, to do in the coming days and months?
I think we need to take this movement to the grassroots. We are going to go to the grassroots. We're going to tour the country, go to cities and villages, listen to the young of this country, because nobody's listening to them. We want to give them an ear. and we want to come up ultimately with an agenda for the youth of this country. That is going to be our future. We want to take this movement to the grassroots, create awareness there, empower people there, so that whichever political party be in power, they'll be able to make them work for them.
And what kind of a political impact do you think this protest has had? Do you think it's going to play out electorally also in coming months?
See, I'm sure the government is worried about its electoral fortunes after this protest, because we saw widespread support from across ideologies and across political leanings. Apolitical people are one of our biggest, supporters. I was reading somewhere that by 2029, 5 to 6 crore young people will become voters. So that's a huge number. The government knows this, and they should pay heed to whatever demands the youth has, and they have to support, and they have to inspire confidence in the young. Otherwise, they're going to lose.
CJP provided a forum to the youth to sort of express their frustrations. Uh, can we see CJP becoming a political party in the near future and fighting elections?
We have no plans as of now. We are definitely going to, and we have been, encouraging the young to join politics, because there's a negative connotation to the word politics. Much of our problems are because of it. We need more people to take politics positively, because we need positive people to join politics in order to make it better. So we want to push for younger representation in politics, and that is what we are going to work towards. However, at this point, we have no plans to become a political party.
So, my final question, would you be engaging with the current political setup, the different political parties, the ruling party, as well as the opposition with regard to your issues?
See, the opposition has its own role to play. We, as a pressure group, have our own role to play. I think there can be synergies that can be found. Um, we will, whichever party be it, we'll try to, listen to them. We'll, um, if there are issues that can be raised, we'll, help them. We'll seek their help also. And that is the way forward, because there needs to be a lot more discussion, deliberation, and debating that is required in this country, because that hasn't been happening in the last 12 years. And now I think after the protest, that culture is slowly being reclaimed. It is democracy is being restored. That atmosphere of fear is going away. So that's a positive sign for our country.
Thank you so much, Saurav, for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you.